liberty and justice for all.
Meeting of the Wahoo City Council, June 22nd, 7 o'clock p.m. Open Meetings Act is posted on the wall. Call the meeting to order and roll call.
Stuart Creechy.
Here.
Shane Sweet.
Here.
Carl Warford.
Here.
Ryan Ideas.
Here.
Chris Rackle.
Here.
Patrick Nagel.
Okay, no proclamations. Audience is further skimp. We have one in the corner back there, but I don't know that she has any things to say. Okay, we'll move forward. Grant is not here yet. Is he going to be here?
No.
Oh, okay. Melissa, you're up.
Okay, so a few of these things I went over with you at the last meeting, even though I didn't have a written report. We did on June 6th do an all-employee training on sexual harassment. It was pretty well attended by our employees. June 10th, and then on last night we had our housing task force committee meeting with team members from JEO, and the draft of that is going to be coming out for the team members to review and comment, and then hopefully by the last meeting in July we'll have a presentation on that. Staff completed training on the ID printer that you approved purchasing, and the Salamander system, which is a system that's used to track not only employees but also can be used to track equipment assets from an emergency management standpoint. I attended the open house that NDOT held in Meade on the US Highway 77 Wahoo Fremont project and had some good conversations. I would encourage you, they are accepting comments until the 1st of July to submit any, if you were able to attend, if you have any comments, please let them know if you have any concerns. I did have a conversation with one of the members there about I was concerned because they're proposing using 2 existing lanes and adding 2 existing lanes, but not changing any of the elevation up or down. And for that east-west traffic, I'm not sure that that's going to do much to correct some of the snow and the blowing problems that we have. And they seemed to not really know that that was an issue. So I myself personally submitted a comment, and I encouraged them to make sure they have conversations with the Wahoo Fire Department and EMS and the Meade Fire Department and EMS to get Saunders County Sheriff to have a full understanding of that situation. So I attended the Accounting and Finance Conference in Lincoln at the Cornhusker, where I, along with Jeff Hofaker, who's the administrator in Sutton, and Lane, I can't remember his last name, who's from North Platte, on EPIC. On June 17th, I attended the Hazard Mitigation Plan Update meeting at Lower Platte North NRD. Every 5 years, the plan must be updated, so I have a little packet of to identify and update hazards that we have in the Wahoo area, natural disaster hazards. I attended the Nebraska City County Managers Association annual conference in York last week. Aurora was technically the host community, so we spent a little bit of time in Aurora, and I would say that community has an amazing philanthropic spirit. Not that we don't, but their library, their community center, their economic development is all funded by local donations and not any local tax dollars. So the library is named, and the economic development center is named, and so it's pretty incredible, honestly. We had a downtown water main project construction update. That is moving smoothly. We did update them with the meeting downtown event dates, the fair, the car show, so they're aware of that, and emphasize the need for there to be safe conditions for the public. And then just a reminder, on Thursday we do have a special council meeting regarding the North Chestnut drainage that starts at 5. I wanted to spend a little bit of time and go over some of the legislative bills that were approved, because they have an effective date of July 19th, and we kind of covered some of those at the NCMA conference I was at. I'll try to breeze through these fairly quickly, but public records requests, it used to be that there are 4 hours of free to anyone who files a public records request. That was changed to now 8 hours free to anyone domiciled within the state. And any time that is spent reviewing the records to redact any information is not eligible to be counted, and that's free, no matter whether you have to do it yourself or you consult an attorney. That's outside of that. If your pulling in the records goes over 8 hours, then you can start charging your time for that. But on the flip side, there are 0 hours free for non-residents, and in the event that the records have to be reviewed to determine if any should be redacted, we can charge for those situations. Included in that bill also was a change to public meeting law. I know that we have been told over and over that we don't have to allow people to speak at all meetings. We just have to give them the opportunity to speak at some of the meetings. This law changed that. We now have to allow them to speak at every meeting. We can make reasonable rules, but they must be allowed to speak. I think Christina is working on some guidelines or some rules that she'll present to you guys to adopt and laying out for the public speaking at our meetings. LB 287 made some changes. I know there's a lot of newspapers that are not still in production, or they fail or refuse, or they're unable to publish notices. So that bill gives us an option there is a Nebraska Press Association's website where legal notices, even if we now submit them to the newspaper, they're all published on that website. So we can there's an alternative to us if the newspaper would happen to go away. LB 364 requires us to publish any of our membership dues and lobbying fees on the city's website. So I think the idea behind with this is that we are disclosing any organization that we're a part of that participates in lobbying, whether that's locally at the state level or whether that's federally. So I already have that up on the city's website if you want to look at that. And interesting, and I think I've mentioned this before, LB 600 provides for $5 million of infrastructure dollars that can, Nebraska Department of Economic Development is controlling those and doling them out, but we can apply for those for redevelopment projects. So a redevelopment project is something funded with TIF. So if we have a lot of infrastructure that would help bring a project to reality, we can apply for those funds. LB 685 changed some of the provisions on mechanical amusement devices. So those are your pinball machine, your pool table, and all of those other sorts of machines where you put cash in to play. They took away the ability for us to levy any kind of occupation tax on that, and the state is handling all of that. But then in addition, which is the real heart of the bill, is regulating the cash machines. So some people call them slots, but like the place down.
Yeah, game of skill.
Deuces Wild, thank you.
Yeah.
And it really goes into how those can be regulated by the Department of Revenue, what they have to pay an occupation tax on those, they have to pay income tax on the revenue that they make off of those, and then they have to pay a 5% tax to charitable gaming, to the state, on money that they make above and beyond. One significant part of that bill requires that a business collect at least 60% of their revenue from something other than the cash devices. The change of the playing age to 21 and requires that they control or verify the age for anyone playing on those devices. So there's going to be some changes for us as a city. Losing that occupation tax amounts to something less than $1,000. There are the city of North Platte, for instance, they have a pretty hefty occupation tax on those games of skill, and their revenue impact is about $80,000 a year. So, LB 1118 changes the removal of an appointed official. So previously, or when this bill currently, if the mayor would want to decide that he's finished with me or any other appointed official, he could say, sorry, you're not appointed anymore, and you guys wouldn't have any say over that. This bill changed that so that the removal can be made by the mayor, but you guys have to concur on an appointed official. And then really the last one is a change in property tax exemption. So if a nursing home or assisted living facility provides beds for Medicaid beneficiaries, that percentage of their beds over the 3-year average of their property tax value is now exempt. So the idea is it makes it easier for them less expensive for them to have those Medicaid beds available to those who need it. So I know I went through those pretty fast. If you have any questions, I'm sure there's others that will impact us as well. But
On the gaming devices, so we lose a little bit of occupation. The state now picks up revenue. They also monitor. It's up to them to.
right,
We're not picking up an obligation without a funding source.
no, we don't have any obligation. In fact, they're creating this fund that is going to eventually require all the gaming devices to be tied together so the state can monitor them. And of that 5% that they pay in, 25 of that 5% will come back to the county, and the county will then distribute half of that to the political subdivision. So we'll get 12.5% of the 5%. And I have no idea what that's going to amount to. I don't know how much people make on those, but it's off of the net revenue of those machines. So we did purchase a new car, the utilities, 2017 Ford Taurus for $9,500, which is a pretty good deal, 33,000 miles. We're working out the arrangement with the utilities. We do have a job opening at City Hall. Our Sally Klein, who was our office assistant, took a job that's closer to home. She lives in Fremont, so she's not a fan of driving, which I understand. So her last day was on Friday. So if you know of anyone looking, we do have it posted on the city's website.
Thank you. Okay, consent agenda. The normal items on there, one pay application, and then a lot of reappointments. It's the time for everybody's reappointment. I was glad that everybody that's serving wanted to be reappointed. A couple of them said this the last time, but whatever. So I was pleased with that. I made contact with all of them. So
How often does the Board of Adjustments meet? Is it a couple times a year? If even that?
well, on
As
call.
needed, or-
Yeah, it's needed.
Yeah, I don't know if we've.
It's been a while.
It's been a while.
I don't think
Travis does a good job. I want to
That's good.
say it was maybe 22 the last time. It was after I started, but only once since then. So
Oh, wow.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
questions. Roll call.
Krejci,
Yes.
Ideas,
Yes.
Rappel,
Yes.
Yes.
Warford.
Yes.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. And then, first item, there's no public hearings. So first item is discussion regarding possible annexation to the new NRD location and direction to staff to prepare documents for annexation. I'll speak a little bit from the NRD. You probably know where the new office is, on the west side of the lake.
Oh, up on the corner by the arrow.
Yeah, Arrow, and then there's a Quonset building, that's NRD's, and right north of there, up to the pump station. There's and then housing. So at this point, the discussion has been at least to that location would be suitable to the NRD. They also have rural water running through there, our water line, or their water line, but it's our water. And the new office would be on Wahoo water, but the rest of the residents would still be on rural water until we would annex in. And so if we decide not to, I don't think it's a big deal to them, but I think they feel that area is going to grow, and I think I would agree with that on the west side. So that's kind of where we're at. We have I'm on the new office committee. We meet tomorrow after lunch, and we'll be giving him maybe hopefully some kind of a direction tonight as to what we're kind of thinking, whether we try and go ahead or not. You've looked into some things.
Yeah, I guess I included in the packet the annexation study, and what we're talking about is actually connecting. Oh, I forgot this is touchscreen, but it would be this corner of the pink here, and then this section here of this turquoise color. So it's part of Area 7, which I included in the packet, and part of Area 5. I also included Area 2 in the packet just for your reference. I don't know, Ryan, do you have any comments?
So, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I was approached and we were talked to at the utilities department about serving the NRD with electric. They need 3-phase power for their new building. Butler County Public Power, this resides in their service territory, does not have 3-phase power. And it really works into our master plan. It's a few years ahead of time where we want to be. What we were planning to do is bringing, as you guys have known, we've talked about looping our power system from Casey's down all the way to the hospital. And then a long-term goal is to bring it up around the 4-lane and loop up down Chestnut Street and bring a nice big loop. The portion up North Chestnut wasn't really on our short-term goals, but it's on our long-term goals. So it was more of moving that section of it ahead of time, and then moving under the 4-lane seems to make sense to us from the utilities department to serve if that is annexed. In order for us to serve it, though, it has to be annexed into city limits for us to take that service territory from Butler County Public Power. There would be a charge to the NRD for us to bring that power to them. A lot of that cost will not be passed. Most of the cost for going from 23rd to the 4-lane will not be, just as there won't be annexed or there won't be development fees along the 4-lane, as we view that as part of our big master plan. It serves, our overall looping. Normally for developments, if it was a radial feed that served no other purpose, we would pass that full cost on. We already serve this area with sanitary sewer. As the mayor said, we have our water line goes across, and there's a meter house right there that serves the rural line that goes to Colon. And we also have looked at, we don't need annexation. We're pretty sure we want to go ahead and bring natural gas to that building anyway if we bring power, so we can serve with all 4 utilities. I don't think it's a matter of if, but when annexation is going to happen there. For us, if we're going to do it, now is better than later, because we have to pay a 1.5 years of revenue of whatever meters are inside of what we annex. Right now, there's shop, and that's it, right? And so and then the meter house there's 2 meters. The cost is going to be very marginal. I think I estimate around $1,500 to buy that from Butler County Public Power. If we wait until this building's built, the cost goes up exponentially, because it's not just their margin. We have to pay whatever the full retail bill is. So the Board of Public Works took this up on our last meeting on Wednesday, and Ryan was there, and Chris had spoke to me about it. He wasn't at the meeting, but it was voted 4-0 to move forward with, or recommending to the council that this get annexed so that we could serve them as part of our service territory. So I think it's a good decision. I think, again, it's maybe expediting some of our plans along Chestnut Street, but there's no downside in that it's just going to help development on both sides of Chestnut Street. So I don't know if Melissa, do you have any?
Yeah.
So, okay.
So as far as the governmental services go, when we're talking about annexation, we already do all of the maintenance of Chestnut Street up to the expressway. There would be a road to the north, but we haven't really talked much about it, but that is something we could look at and interlocal with the county, since they're already out there plowing. Because when you annex an area, you have to annex the road. So I don't think there is intent of moving in at all into that area 2 or moving to the north past the NRD location.
Why not?
So
At this point, as far as the area 2 goes, it would be something that we would take a firm position on if that was to be developed.
But there was an opportunity for it to be developed.
Yes, there was. It's not currently developed, and yeah.
I would say from utilities perspective on why we wouldn't want to annex now, that does move the cost. We'd have to purchase all those homes, their meter costs from Butler County and OP.
But area 2 would be.
Not area 2, but area 5, where
Right.
we're going into those homes. So our preference would be to stop at the NRD building and eventually make that part of Wahoo's long-term plan. Again, whenever the city says, no, we want that in city limits, Wahoo's Utilities is going to, follow and order at the recommendation board, of course, would move forward with annexation. Area 2, like Melissa said, this sets us up for Area 2 to be even more,
I think in area
Yeah.
2, it also doesn't necessarily meet the in my opinion, currently doesn't meet the definition of urban, suburban in character, right? It is, but it definitely sets us up so that there's no question, without a doubt, going forward, that if that development would happen, we would annex that area.
I'm sure. Something like that. But I just wonder if, we start providing services across the highway there, that there are residents there, that I know a lot of people are frustrated without the power, and they're on and off getting power in those locations. They're sure.
And that doesn't preclude, I mean, if we annex up to it, they could come with a petition and say, come get us, we would like to be annexed in.
and we would serve, that, at that point.
We do assume some responsibilities. You wanna
Yes, thank
explain
you.
that?
Sure. And so right now, from a law enforcement standpoint, the intersection with the expressway is not within our official jurisdiction. That is the county's. Obviously, our crews go out and help if there was ever be an accident or something happened there. But there's that part of it. Then the lighting at every intersection that is within the city limits, like the hospital at 109, 77, 92, those intersections, if something happens to one of the street lights, typically the state says, oh, that's in city limits. You, the city, have to repair the street light. We have to change the light bulbs. We have to replace the pole. And most of the time when those poles are hit, there's usually someone to pursue for that cost. And that's a little bit of effort, but that is our responsibility then. So it wouldn't be any different than what we already have at 109, 77, 92, 15th Street, the hospital. J Road.
Do you want to mention that this would only be a portion of Hoffman property, not on this property, right?
Right. In our conversations, we talked about limiting it to the property owned by the Hoffman family on the east side of the road, versus bringing in those two homes that are up on the top of the hill.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask. So at area 7, you're gonna stop before so you're not taking the two houses up on the hill.
Right.
Just enough to make it adjacent so we can get across the street.
Right.
So it's very selective and
So where does the
interesting.
power come from? Is this coming from around the loop? Is it coming up
This
Chestnut?
will come straight up Chestnut.
Straight up.
Street. Okay.
Makes sense.
Okay, I mean, we've tried to frame the project pretty well. I don't know if there's some questions or,
Can you scroll over just a little bit or make it a little smaller so you can see?
The scores.
So yeah, the scores.
Yeah, that was
so-
my first concern. I'm like, well, area 5 is as
Area-
low as it didn't even score. It was so low. Right? It was
Yeah.
below the line. Like, don't even touch this one. And that's because it's not adjacent to begin with.
Right,
I suppose
but
we're-
and that was something that Bobby explained. If we were to annex part of Area 7, which is part of what we're talking about, then Area 5 becomes adjacent, which changes that score.
7, on the other hand, was one that we were already looking at doing? What's to keep us from moving forward in that whole piece of property? I mean, it's been studied, you know, there's what, 2 houses in the entire thing?
Essentially, yes. I'm trying to think what else is in there.
A big old creek.
Yeah,
Creek.
lots of
Lots of
floodplain, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily anything, but it doesn't
Gee
change
whiz,
a
if
whole
you
lot,
guys-
but at least it moves us up to the bypass. I feel weird about taking this little alley so we can pick up one building. It just feels icky.
If we were,
To me, it gets us across the 4 lane, and that to me is a good thing.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
It must be on the steps. I think,
right.
you know, where we have had conversations with Hoffman's, they are in favor or not against.
Okay.
From now, you know, as the conversations we've had so far, and, you know, NRD is in favor, and so.
Yeah, I think that's,
It's
Path of least resistance right now.
path of least resistance for now, and then.
Fair enough.
I think that, I agree with you that our goal should be to just annex inside the 4 lane, but I think one step at a time, maybe.
yes, you're working with a limited number of property owners. And you have an ultimate property owner that, with the NRD, that is in favor of it, can kind of help.
It's asking for it, essentially.
Yeah.
Is there any glaring negatives? I mean, I'm not seeing negatives, I'm seeing some potential law enforcement work on intersections, but
I think from Board of Public Works, all they really came up with was that it just slid it up the timetable a little bit.
Yeah.
And that was
Yeah.
really the only negative from that side.
and we know from timetables is that they never go on to.
Right,
Yeah.
sure. Usually they don't go early.
Yeah, that's true.
Cost involved now would be less expensive than
Yeah.
3, 4, 7 years down the road.
Fair enough.
Since it's a continuation, it's not spot zoning. So better stay away from that. When will we be looking at the annexation study as we talk about the rest of it? Is that a month away or?
It's kind of in your timetable. If you guys want to bring it to the table and have conversations and be aggressive, I guess maybe is the word, in annexing some of these areas, that this information in this annexation study is there to support your decisions and support your desire or to move forward if that's what you want to do. I know that at the time we did that, there was some conversation about developments in area 2 and then an area to the west of the expressway. And that was really kind of a real push to get this completed so that we had basically a position that said, we are already looking at this. And
Have some of those conversations cooled?
yes.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I would make a recommendation for the staff to start preparing documentation for it. So that's where we're at right now. We're not ready for an ordinance or ready for the,
Just to
they
prepare.
just start running the paperwork. I think it makes sense at this point if utilities and everybody at Board of Public Works says this is what we should be doing, I guess.
Yeah, second.
Make that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Warford,
Yes.
Krejci,
Yes.
Sweet,
Yes.
Rappel,
Yes.
IDS.
Yes.
Okay, number 2, waiver of preliminary plating process for the replat of lots 89, 90, and 91 North Highlands, Phase 2, and authorization to proceed with final plating process as recommended by city staff.
So both this agenda item and the next one is exercising a provision of the subdivision regulations that gives staff the ability to recommend waiving the preliminary plating process. This one is just a combination of the 3 lots and splitting it into 2 that are directly north of the park space, which I don't know whether we're calling it Sycamore Park or North Highlands Park or
Park space. Right?
Park space, right? Yes. We did have a Water Tower Park. There you go. We did have a conversation with the developer that these 2 lots will still be assessed with the same value of the 3 lots, just split in 2. So the way we're planning to do the assessments is take the total project cost divided by the number of lots. Well, that's not fair for these 2, so it'll be divided. This will still be the value of 3 lots that's split in half.
And they will very last to put townhomes on it or something.
I think a single family home. Yeah.
But the developer approached the city about
Yeah.
the plan.
Well,
And
and
this is
the
just waiting
realtor.
for preliminary, we still have the final.
Yeah, you'll still have a public hearing on the final plat, but this is just a waiver of the process.
How often do we do this waiver? I feel like it's every time. Very often anybody does the preliminary plat anymore?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. I don't see preliminaries. I see the waivers for preliminaries.
we do preliminary like on bigger subdivisions. There are provisions in the subdivision regulation that says if these conditions are met, like this doesn't require any infrastructure changes or improvements. It's still within the zoning requirements, meets the zoning regulations. So
I'd make motion to approve the waiver of the preliminary platting process.
I'll second that.
Okay, any more discussion? Roll call.
Warford,
Yes.
Rappel,
Yes.
Krejci,
Yes.
Sweet,
Yes.
Ideas.
Yes.
Number 3, waiver of preliminary plating process for the replat of Lot 2, Sycamore Hills, second edition, and authorization to proceed with final plating process as recommended by city staff.
So this came as part of the JEO Investments PUD application. Again, Lot 2, Sycamore Hills, second edition was platted already. There's no like additional street that would be needed unless the PUD would not advance, right? So at the Planning Commission's meeting on July 2nd, and then depending on their action, likely at your last meeting in July, there will be a public hearing on the PUD application, which is being treated like a change of zoning because it's putting that PUD over the top of the C3 zoning. And in that, then in addition, they have a plan for how the internal access will be split up between these 3 lots. So there would be one access point off of the street right at that lot line in between the 2 middle lots. So Travis and I talked about this, and we believe in this instance, we're not sure what preliminary platting process would accomplish with this because the lot is already there, the infrastructure is already established, and so it will be discussed fully with the PUD application. The Planning Commission would make a recommendation on the final plat at their meeting, and then public hearing on both the final plat and the PUD application would be at the second July meeting here.
So waiver is just a step.
Right. It's right.
I'll make that motion that we waive the preliminary planning process for this stated property.
Second.
Okay. Discussion? Roll call.
Rappel,
Yes.
Krejci,
Yes.
Ideas.
Yes.
Sweet,
Yes.
Warford.
Yes.
Number 4, approval of resolution number 2024-08 pertaining to cemetery regulations regarding decoration. Who's
Hi, Mayor, council members, Melissa and Christina. So you guys had recently approved this resolution for the cemetery rules. A couple weeks had passed, and a couple of team members came back and said, "Hey, I've got some concerns with a couple of things in there." So we were like, "Okay, let's talk about it." We discussed it. What happened is there were some. I think they're stricken out. I don't know if you guys have the papers in front of you, but Christina's got it up there. So there were some holidays that were put in with good intent that weren't in the original rules and regulations. So after a little further thought on this, when the team members came forward, they were like, hey, let's take this out because it seems to open a pathway to additional things we've never had to deal with before. So we were like, okay, we'll take that into consideration. There was one other area that a team member came forward and said, hey, at the time, I think it was like standalone vases or glass on the headstones. Why not just change that to glass? Again, we apologize for having to come back on this, but I think it's important for a couple reasons. And I'm just going to kind of talk for just a second about trust. One thing, in trust, it's how we kind of go through our daily lives, our professional lives, and how we interact with our community. And there's trust and communication. And oftentimes when you sit with folks and you're reviewing and you're discussing things, depending on where they're at in their level of trust with whom they're discussing, they may or may not bring these things to the table. Could these have been brought to the table at the beginning of these conversations? Potentially. It just, I think, got undercurrent and then kind of rose to the surface. And so we said we would bring this forward and see if the board would approve the changes.
I think sometimes with discussion, I think sometimes this does come out, and I don't think that's a negative or a bad thing. So I think it's a document that can be tweaked and for the right reason.
Thank you. Yeah, we apologize for it being so short. We hope this one stands for several years. The other thing too that's really a consideration here is, right, we're really trying to improve the output of our product, and our product is cemetery streets and stormwater. And so when the team, right, as we're getting those team inputs, it's important that we're, as leaders, considering that. And but again, we hope to not have any changes to this. It should be it for a while. But
Well, did I understand that these were inserted before?
they were never in there before. I think when we were going through the discussions, it was like, oh, hey, it's kind of a good idea. There was an individual, to be unnamed because I don't think it's that important, who didn't really express that these weren't in the original rules and that it was going to open, they felt, an area that we wouldn't have to deal with, right? We've never had to deal with it before. It just kind of, it puts more maintenance on it, puts more out there basically, right? So that was the fundamentals of that.
So up to this point in time, we have not allowed decorations for Easter or Mother's Day.
Correct.
Okay. Because that makes me feel a little bit better about specifically striking it. We've never offered it to
Correct.
begin.
Yep.
So what happens if somebody does put decorations out like that?
I mean, they'll be there for a while, right? We don't police it up front, on the back end. If somebody comes out and does Mother's Day, and it does happen, right? You're going to have folks that come out and do these things for their loved ones, and that's fine. But they're picked up, right? If they're in the way, if they fall outside of the scope of the rules, like, they're interfering with maintenance, which is, weed eating, string trimming, mowing, then they're going to get picked up and disposed of appropriately.
So if you would take a bouquet of flowers and put it in the vase that's attached to
Correct.
the gravestone, it's not going to, there's nothing wrong with that. That's in line with all of, for Mother's Day or Valentine's
Sure.
Day, whatever. That's
For any
completely
day,
fine,
right?
any
Yeah.
day, right?
What percentage of the permanent vases, whatever they might be called, bowls,
Mhm.
are artificial flowers, or most of them live flowers?
It depends. I don't know the actual numbers. I'd actually say it's about 50-50, and it kind of depends on the holiday, right? You'll see a lot of, I think, the more plastic flowers come out for the big holidays, right? Because they're easily accessible. It's like Memorial Day, you see a lot of plastics. I think for folks going in on an any day occasion, right, paying tribute to their loved one, you're going to have real flowers in there. And again, those fall as long as they're in the attached vases or the approved vases. Those are fine, right? We just didn't want to open a door for additional, I don't know what you would call it, additional decorations that it just seemed weird. And so they brought it up, and the more we talked about it, it was like, yeah, well, Joe and I talked about it and said, we'll bring it forward. So,
But you're specifically speaking about certain holidays, and I guess my mind is going, well, what about Labor Day? Well, what about, so do you just say, well, specifically we will allow decorations Memorial Day and Christmas?
correct.
That's it?
Yes.
Nothing else counts?
Correct.
And when you start trying to list off the things on here, it's like the list is endless.
Right. St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
And again, it does say they can't do it, but it doesn't really preclude people from doing it.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. Because you can go out there any
Put
day of the
some
week,
up.
right, and put anything.
Put it on the 4th of July, somebody's got to take it down. Somebody
Right.
just takes it down and gets rid of it. frankly, that's gotta happen one way or another anyway, so.
The version of the regulations that is in place before the last time we discussed this, the only holiday listed was Memorial Day.
Okay.
And then in that proposal that we discussed a couple of meetings ago, we had added Christmas, Easter, Mother's Day, Father's Day. So that has not actually been in effect yet. We haven't implemented these rules yet.
So it hasn't been necessarily published or out there
It
for the
hasn't
public yet,
published.
aside from
So
the
at this point in
availability.
time, it's just Memorial Day. Our process of the last meeting, we did not only add the ones that strike out, but we also added Christmas.
Yes.
And
then
now
we're
we're
making
changing,
this-
And now
we're
we're changing
rethinking,
back.
right.
I guess I'm just trying to.
And Christmas technically runs from Thanksgiving through the 2nd of June, or 2nd of January.
Correct.
Christmas decorations right around Halloween.
So we also discussed
Well, there's one out there that's,
adding Thanksgiving and stretching it out. The intent of that is that if people do it, it's okay because really in the wintertime, we're not out there mowing.
Right.
There's not much maintenance. But there's a lot of gray areas in there that make it difficult for the staff to do their job. So gray areas decisions are bad. And so we're just trying to simplify that to make it easier for our staff, one, and for two, to put a better product out to the community. I mean, that's really the biggest thing. Is we've looked at our concerns, we've looked at all of the concerns that come in. We're really lax on this, but when we go in and we have to pull something, most of the time we do get the complaint, well, why did you pull that? Well, there's areas on here that define, to protect our staff, why they decided, oh, this item was unsightly, the wreath was blown over, we don't know whose it is, we just pick it up. And
It's the teeth.
This comes out.
And they just,
It gives you the reason, like that.
Yeah.
That's what I was sitting there thinking.
yeah.
So
It gives you the backup.
somebody comes up and says, "Hey, I put that out there, and it meant a lot to me. Where'd it go?" I'm like, "Well, it didn't fall within the regulations, and unfortunately, we need to clear that out so we can continue our maintenance." It gives you the reason to do it.
because I can tell you that the staff, we're very passionate on people decorating. We want that. We want to have the most beautiful cemetery out there. But we need to shore up some of these to get to that point. I think that's the ultimate goal.
reason I asked about the live plants. In order to improve the vegetation, the grass, weeds and that, it'd be almost impossible, I'm assuming, to spray out there.
Yes, it's very complex with that, 'cause like right now we're spraying. There's a lot of beautiful live flowers out there. We wish we could go around and cover every single one, but we just can't do it.
Yeah.
The other hard part is like after Memorial Day, there's lots of flowers out there, and we have to pick them up because they're sitting all over the place, and we have to pick those up and dispose of them. And so we give the families community time to come back and pick those up if they want them, but you'd be shocked how much stuff gets left out there. Whether the people are from, out of town, out of state, we get a lot of those. And we try to leave them as long as we can, but they become unsightly. We have storms come through, they blow all over the place. The live flowers is really tough, because like right now we are spraying, and it's just a risk. I mean, we can't protect flowers that are invasive.
Are
A
there
lot of
any,
people spend a lot of money on beautiful arrangements out there.
are there any cemeteries that say plastics only?
Not that I've seen. I know a lot of cemeteries don't spray. They consider it a park. Like you don't spray your parks, your dandelions and stuff all stay. You don't spray the weeds, but we get a lot of complaints about the weeds and the look. And I think a lot of that's changing now. We're changing the way we mow. We're changing the height of the mowers, the way we weed eat, the way we do things, the way we treat the grass. Like I think it's gone so far. It's gone a long time without being maintained a certain way. And I think our standard is just, it's rising, and this is the stuff we need to do.
Well, since the topic is up, I had a customer stop in yesterday, and he asked me if I wanted to take a drive, and we drove to the cemetery. And so, he came in a very respectful manner. He intends to be buried there one day, and he was just, wanting us to up our game, and mentioned his uncle and aunt's spot, and there was a big weed by one of them, and some of it's timing, right? And so, yeah, I'll be curious I guess I reassured him and said, hey, there's been a focused commitment to it, and it should be turning around and should be.
It really has, and I just.
He was happy to
I
hear
ask the
that.
public to be patient because we truly, if there was one area in my position that we're focusing on, it's the cemeteries.
Yeah.
Because I never realized, I mean, we all have loved ones that are buried in cemeteries, but I never realized until I took this position how passionate people are about their loved ones, especially in this community. And so it's tough because, I mean, this year we've had a lot of rain.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of elements that go into it. I mean, we really want to get better. There's a lot of little things that we can do. It's not up to my standards. We're working on it. I mean, we will get there. I promise that. But it takes time, and we love the public engagement. We love hearing. When we get a complaint, we don't really call them complaint. We call them concerns because every one of them are very important. It bounces through our whole staff. We're even working with Christina now just to get this information back to the secretaries, so when they get it, they can answer those questions too when they answer the phones, or they can give feedback when needed, and vice versa. Like, you ever need anything like that, bring it up to us because we want to make it better.
Well, like I say, he came very respectfully with his approach, and he was happy to hear that more focus is being given to it. So I'm sure he'll let me know in 6 months or a year if he feels like he needs to keep improving.
Stay tuned.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, he's pretty patient.
Well, it's nice that this stuff is in writing. It's nice that the city does it. I said, I'm familiar with the Skyler Cemetery. That's not part of the town. That's very confusing to a lot of people. So you don't know who's doing what.
So I think the other big thing we need to do a better job of too, and I know this is very difficult. I mean, it's even difficult for the staff, but these rules are put in place for a reason, and we have to enforce them. We have to stick to the reasons why we're doing it. We're not trying to strip away anybody from doing certain things, but for far too long, I feel like we didn't enforce the little rules that got out of control. They're on boards, they're posted, they're here. We have to be the bad guys sometimes. We're put in that position to do that job, and that's what we have to do. We have to say, hey, these flowers have been out here 8 months. They were pink when we started, now they're white. They need mold.
Well, and I think there will be more understanding as the cemetery improves, right? Like, if you might be frustrated that your flowers got pulled, but if you're explaining it and saying, yeah, but look, it's mowed, it's weed eated, it's, we're trying to stay on a much better schedule and put out a better product, and you're going to get a few, but I think by and large people will understand.
Well, I think too, also by ignoring some of those, rules, whether they were small or whatever, for years, that becomes a standard to people.
Sure.
And that rule doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
We enforce them, more people become accustomed to them and are okay with them. Because it's a standard thing, it's not just every now and then.
Good neighbor policy.
Good. What's the council's action?
I think that the change in this is for the right reasons, so I'll go and make that motion that that we make the change to resolution.
I will second that.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other comments? Roll call.
Rappel,
Yes.
Sweet,
Yes.
Warford,
Yes.
Ideas,
Yes.
Preachy.
Yes.
Okay, mayor's comments. I also, there's some other council members, I think, that are over at the open house. I did ask what the second most popular question was, and it was, when's the highway going to go 92 into Omaha? He said, yeah, there's a lot of questions that way. Their timetable right now, and it's not going to be anywhere in concrete, but that's kind of a pun, I guess, but 2034 before 92 would probably be going east. So
I did have that same conversation with an individual from DOT, and we were talking about the effort that Fremont put forth in getting the bypass around bumped up in terms of construction and the chicken plant involved. And his comment was, yeah, sometimes the political persuasion can be effective. So I think that's, because I said to him, I said, all we need is a economic development project. It's going to bring about 500 employees somewhere between Wahoo and Utan, and we'll get the 4-lane to Omaha. And he said, yep, you're probably right.
Or at least to Utan.
At least to Utan, right, yeah.
Yeah, when Norfolk got another steel plant, well, 275 up to there was the focus, and then when the chicken plant come in, that focus and got that to Fremont. So it is political pressure and political motives, I guess. So the only other comment, some of the staff have met with the developer on our 2 projects at the campus and the grocery store. He'd like to get closer to being able to start, but he just says, I'm getting close. That was not satisfactory to us without some sort of a definite time frame, but we are going to meet with him sometime in July. Because we can't, financing, I think, is his biggest concern with the interest. And we can't wait for interest to go down 2%. So he's going to have to do something a little bit different.
I know Kennedy campus hadn't been mowed, windows are still out. I mean, unless it's gotten mowed in the last couple of days, it was looking abandoned. The grocery store, I mean, there's more water every time it rains,
I
and
know.
pump it out. So I mean,
It's getting to be a health hazard right now.
Yeah, it could be a hazard, definitely.
that's definitely.
God forbid some kid fall into that little water pit.
We've had that conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the bottom is all mud and cattails, and it's slick.
I mean, nothing else, there should be some kind of barricade around it or something to do.
You know, if you just pump it, it'd be dry.
No, I agree, but something.
Something, yeah, do something.
Any additional comments from the council? Remember Thursday night, library, 5 o'clock?
5 o'clock. I think.
Yeah, the official.
I mean, besides, I know JEO and the residents, is there anybody who else outside of the city is going to be there?
Talk to the NRD.
NRD's going to be there?
So is this going to be just kind of question and answer period? Are we all sitting at a table and just like this again, or what's the?
What's the structure going to be?
Yeah.
We're
I
trying to
think-
figure out how,
I
we had
said
a meeting this
that-
afternoon and we've got to meet again. You know, we know what they've told us. I don't know that we need to hear it again.
For me, my goal from the meeting is not to rehash everything, because we've spent countless hours and dollars doing that. My goal would be to see if we can't collectively come up with maybe a list of potential solutions. And no commitment, because I guess my position is, that we will keep the project in our capital improvement plan that's listed in the study, but we have other things to spend our money on that are not more important, but that are a higher priority. And I guess I have been struggling with trying to figure out the best structure as well. So I don't.
Are we allowed to have, is this it's not a published meeting, a special meeting?
It is a special
It-
meeting
it-
because you all are.
It'll be open to the
I was
public.
gonna say, that's what I was gonna ask, are we allowed to have more than 3 of us show up?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And unlike a lot of these, when it's comment period, we do get to interact a little more this time.
Well, that was my thought,
Yeah.
just you can talk instead of sitting here getting beat up over it.
I just don't like the fact that all of the onus seems to be getting put on the city. When the reality of the situation is, and there's probably blame to be spread around in some shape or form, you know, and to have it all be thrown in one direction.
That's what. Yes, we could get to the
Past
other
that.
side of that,
We get
then
past
maybe we can have constructive conversation.
that. And that should be the goals. They have constructive conversation.
Any other comments? Not, entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor of staying? Thank you.
Get rid of it.